I came for Easter, but my dad said, "Don't interfere with a real family spending time together." Then I said, "Okay, just don't wait for my $12,300 to pay your mortgage." Dad didn't believe me, Mom laughed. I canceled everything, even bills. But 6 days later, when it was time to pay, they came begged me. I slammed the door in front of them, and then it started with a text from my mom 2 weeks before Easter. Something generic like, "Hope you're doing well, let us know if you're coming down for Easter this year." No warmth, no real curiosity. Just obligation. I almost ignored it. Almost. But for some reason I thought maybe, just maybe, things might be different this time. Maybe they'd grown a little, maybe they'd finally learned how to treat people with respect, even their own son. So I said yes. I booked the flight, cleared my schedule, and even decided to surprise them with something helpful. I'd been sending small chunks of money over the past year, nothing crazy, but they'd hinted more than once that they were behind on the mortgage. So I moved some money around and prepared to cover what was needed. $12,300. It wasn't pocket change to me. But I said to myself, this is family. And family helps each other, right? I didn't tell them I was coming early. I landed on Good Friday and took a taxi straight to the house. My mom opened the door. The first thing she said was, "Oh, you didn't tell me you were coming today." Then she half smiled and added, "Well, come in, I guess." As if I were a neighbor who had shown up at the wrong door, but she didn't mean to be rude. Inside, the place was packed. My dad had gathered some of his cousins and some of those weird family friends who always cling to holiday meals like they're owed a seat at the table. I went out to say hello. No one really moved. My dad looked at me, then back at whoever he was talking to. Then, plain as day, in front of everyone, he said, "Don't get in the way of a real family spending time together." That hit home. No one said anything. Not even a cough. Just silence, like everyone agreed, but no one wanted to say it out loud. I didn't react right away. I went back to the kitchen where my mother was pretending to be busy with appetizers. I looked at her and said, "Okay. But don't wait until I give you $12,300 to pay the mortgage." She actually laughed. Like I just cracked a dry dad joke. I walked out without saying another word. That night I sat in my hotel room and canceled everything. The mortgage payment? Gone. The advances on her bills? I called every company and canceled them one by one. Even the grocery delivery I had scheduled for Saturday morning, I canceled everything. It felt cold. It felt good. Easter Sunday came. I stayed at my hotel. I watched a movie, had room service, ignored every notification from the group chat where they were posting pictures of the family dinner. No one mentioned that I wasn't there. Not even once. Then, 6 days later, on the due date, I got a knock on the door. It was them. My parents. No phone call, no message, just standing there in the hotel like nothing had happened. My dad looked exhausted. My mom had that desperate cheerfulness people wear when they know they screwed up but don't want to admit it yet. He asked if I had sent the money. I didn't answer. I closed the door. Not quickly. Not loudly. Just closed it. I stood there for a second, breathing. And then I realized this wasn't just about a vacation. It wasn't just about money. It was about all the years of disrespect, of acting like I owed them something just because I made it. Like my success was theirs to cash in on, but my presence wasn't worth the space it took up. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. That was just the match. The fire hadn't even started. The next morning I woke up to 6 missed calls from my mother and 4 from my father. The last voicemail was the one that stuck with me. My dad, trying to sound calm but clearly nervous, said, "We're in a bit of a situation, Luke. We need to talk. Don't be immature." Immature. I played it 3 times just to make sure I heard him right. After being humiliated in front of his friends, after offering to help, after being laughed at, now I was immature? I didn't react. I got dressed, went downstairs for breakfast, and tried to enjoy my coffee without thinking about them. It almost worked. Until my phone buzzed again. This time it was a cousin. Jason. We hadn't been that close growing up, but we'd kept in touch here and there. "Hey man, just checking in. Uncle Bill says you made bail right before the bank called. Everything okay?" That's when it hit me. They weren't just in trouble. They were in real trouble. I knew they'd been skipping payments for months, but they must have told everyone I had them covered. And when the money didn't show up, the narrative flipped. I was now the villain. I was the reason the house was in jeopardy. That afternoon, my phone exploded with texts from family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Some polite. Some not. My Aunt Helen even sent a Bible verse followed by, "That's not how good sons behave." I turned off my phone. Then, 2 days later, the hotel front desk called me at 11 p.m. A disturbance. In the parking lot. I looked out the window and there they were. My parents. By my car. I was on the 3rd floor, and from where I was standing, I saw my dad take a crowbar to my rearview mirror. I didn't even change my clothes. I just grabbed my key card and went downstairs. By the time I got there, he'd already cracked the windshield. My mom was crying, not stopping him, just watching. I didn't say a word. I walked right past her and into the lobby. The cops arrived 8 minutes later. I filed a report. Gave them my parents' names. Showed them the front desk camera footage. And then I stood at the window as they were both handcuffed and quietly led into the back of the police car. I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel bad either. Just neutral. Like I was finally out of the loop. Watching from a distance. They were released 2 hours later. Jason texted me at 3 a.m. "Dude, you got booked. Are you serious?" I replied, "Dead serious." What I didn't expect was what happened next. Jason showed up at the hotel the next day. Not to defend her, but to ask me what really happened. And when I told him everything, including the mortgage money, the cancelled bills, the crowbar, he sat there in silence for a long time. Then he said, "You know what? Screw them." That's when the shift started. One by one, the relatives began to reach out again, but this time it was different. They weren't blaming. They were apologizing. As it turned out, this wasn't the first time my parents had played the victim. It was just the first time someone had called their bluff. Jason didn't just listen. He took action. He called his sister, who called her father, and within 24 hours, half the family knew the real story. People who'd been guilt-tripping me 3 days earlier were now sending long, guilt-ridden texts of their own. Even my Aunt Helen tried to pivot, saying she had no idea and was just trying to encourage prayer. But it wasn't enough. I was done with apologies. I wanted change. I wanted consequences. I wanted them to feel something, anything close to what I'd felt standing on that porch while my dad humiliated me in front of strangers. So I went back inside. Not to talk. Not to forgive. But to make it official. They didn't know I was listed as a co-owner on the deed. When they fell behind years ago, they'd begged me to co-sign their refinancing. They said they just needed a temporary boost and they'd take care of everything else. I was stupid then. I thought I was helping. But it gave me something valuable: leverage. I went to the county clerk's office and filed the paperwork. Started the process of taking away their right to live in the house. With proof of property damage, unpaid debts, and my name on the paperwork, it wasn't hard. The clerk looked at me and said, "This will take about a week to go through. Once it's done, you can have them legally removed." I thanked her and left. No hesitation. 3 nights later, the hatch was kicked in. I was asleep at the hotel when I got a call from a neighbor who lived across the street from my parents. He said he heard something crashing around midnight. I went right over and knew exactly who it was before I even pulled into the driveway. The basement door was open. The lock smashed. They'd broken into the house I was about to take over, trying to reclaim it before it was gone. I walked into the living room and there they were. My father in a drunken haze, pacing. My mother crying again. Boxes everywhere, like they were trying to move out before I pushed them. He looked up at me and yelled, "You think this is your house? You're just a kid who made some money. You owe us everything." That was it. I took out my cell phone and called the cops. Again. When they got there, he tried to lie. Said he had every right to be there. That I was being dramatic. But now I had the paperwork. The officer looked over everything, then looked back at him and said, "Sir, you need to leave the premises." It took 2 more patrol cars to get him in the back seat. My mother didn't say a word. She just sat on the curb shaking. By morning, the story was all over the family. Jason posted a long rant on Facebook, tagging every relative and exposing every lie they'd ever told. Screenshots of texts, voice recordings, Even an old email in which my dad asked me for money to buy a motorcycle after telling everyone he needed it for dental work. The comments section became a war zone. Relatives quickly picked sides. Some blocked me. Others offered to help me clean the house. But it was too late to clean. This wasn't spring cleaning anymore. This was war. I had no intention of sleeping that night, not after the locksmith finished changing every lock on the property. Every door, every window, even the mailbox got a new key. I didn't trust anything they could touch. I sat on the hardwood floor with a camping lantern beside me, and the house was dead silent, except for the occasional creak that made me tense every time. This wasn't a house anymore. It was a war zone. 2 days after the break-in, I officially moved in. Just me, a cot, and a duffel bag. No furniture. No comforts. I wasn't there to live, I was there to hold the line. Then came Thursday afternoon. I heard a truck pull up loud, rusty suspension, engine coughing like it was held together with duct tape and stubbornness. I looked through the blinds and there they were. My parents, back as if it were just another day at the office. My mom had her arms crossed and was talking with her head tilted as if she was still trying to look like the victim. My dad was standing next to a guy I recognized right away. Benny. Benny was one of those city leftovers. The kind of guy who peaked in high school and never left, drifting between part-time mechanic jobs and sketchy pawn shops. He used to hang out with my dad when I was a kid, usually when something illegal was about to happen. Benny had a crowbar. I didn't move. I just pulled out my phone and started recording. They didn't try the front door this time. Benny walked up to the porch and started smashing the railing. First one post, then another. My dad just stood back and let him work. Like he thought it was some kind of protest. My mom looked away, like if she didn't see it, it didn't count. Then the crowbar went through the front window. I ducked as glass rained down on the floor. My ears were ringing. I didn't scream. I didn't scream. I just kept filming. I called the police again. No hesitation. I gave them my name and address like I'd done it 100 times before. Maybe I had. By the time the first cruiser rolled up, Benny had made it to the porch and was yanking on the new lock like he could rip the whole door off its hinges. My dad yelled something about, "No son of mine is going to kick me out of my house." 2 more cruisers followed, lights flashing. Benny ran. He really ran. Hopped the neighbor's fence and tried to disappear into the backyard. He didn't make it 5 steps before an officer tackled him face first into a pile of leaves. My mom didn't say a word. She just sat on the curb with her arms crossed. This time, my dad was handcuffed too. Resisting officers. Malicious mischief. Trespassing. Same for Benny. The officer who took my statement didn't even ask me if I wanted to press charges. She said, "We'll do it either way." But what happened next surprised me. As I was giving my statement, I heard a voice behind me. Soft but firm. It was my grandmother. I hadn't seen her in almost 5 years. She lived across the country, and we'd only talked on birthdays for the past decade. Somehow she knew. She asked if we could go inside and talk. I let her in. She walked slowly through the house, looking at the damage, the broken window, the shards of glass on the floor, the boxes I hadn't even opened. She sat down on a plastic chair and pulled a folder from her bag. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. All from my father. Letters he'd written to her in his 20s, asking for money, blaming others, talking about schemes to guilt people into helping him. One of them even said, "Luke will owe me one day. I'm raising him, so I expect something in return." I didn't talk for a long time. I just read them. Then she said, "You're doing the right thing. But it's not over. They'll try something else." I nodded. She left the folder with me. And with that, everything changed. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning. Later that night, I scanned each letter. Uploaded them to a private drive. Sent a few to Jason. Jason didn't respond. He just posted them. Screenshots. Snippets. The whole thing. Publicly. Family group chats exploded. People who used to side with my dad now shared memories of being cheated, manipulated, lied to. My uncle, his own brother, commented, "Finally, someone's calling this crap out." But my parents didn't go away. They escalated. And I was ready. After the arrests, after the police report, after Benny the bat-wielding idiot tried to tear down my front porch, things got quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet you get before a storm dies down, when the air is still thick and you know something else is coming, but nobody wants to be the one to move first. The charges are stuck. Vandalism. Trespassing. Destruction of property. My dad hired a low-rent lawyer who tried to argue stress and financial hardship, but the judge didn't buy it. They didn't get jail time, but they were slapped with fines, community service, and a restraining order that they now have to obey. Legally, they couldn't come near the property or me. That's when the real suffering began. They had to leave the house. Permanently. And since they'd already burned every bridge, none of the extended family offered them a place to stay. Even those who had defended them weeks before were suddenly out of town, or renovating the guest room. They ended up in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. Jason drove by it one night and sent me a picture. Peeling paint, a broken vending machine out front, a bent TV antenna on the roof, like the place hadn't been updated since 1992. My parents didn't call me, but they started calling other people. They called my ex. They called my old friends from high school. They called one of my old bosses. I told them that I had ruined them, trying to turn this into some tragic downfall where they were just misunderstood parents, and I was the greedy, heartless son who forgot where he came from. The thing is, nobody bought it anymore. Jason had posted everything. Not just the letters, but screenshots of the emails where my dad asked me for emergency help, that he then used on a used Harley that he crashed a week later. My mom had sent texts begging for grocery money while she spent her afternoons at the salon. People saw it all now. The lies had layers. So I decided to end it. I went to the bank and officially froze the joint account I'd left open for emergencies. Years ago. They'd been siphoning off the last of it since all this started. I'd left it open mostly out of guilt, but not anymore. I pulled the plug on the old phone plan they were still using in my name. Same with the car insurance I'd co-signed when they couldn't get it on their own. Gone. Within hours, everything they had left that was still tied to me was gone. Jason called me that night. Said he saw my dad walking. Walking. No car, no bike, just walking down a long stretch of road near the motel, looking like he didn't know where to go. Said he didn't look angry. He looked empty. And then came the letter. Handwritten, delivered by a mutual family friend who still believed in healing. My mother's handwriting. Pages long. Said she didn't recognize herself. Blamed my dad, then blamed stress, then, of course, blamed me. Said she hoped I would come to my senses before it's too late. She ended with, "Families don't survive wars like this, Luke." She was right. They don't. And I was finally okay with that. By May, there was nothing left for them to cling to. Their names were off the deed. The injunction had been extended. The court ruled everything in my favor without so much as a raised eyebrow. They hadn't even shown up for the final hearing. I sat alone with my lawyer while the judge went through the paperwork like it was a formality. And it was. They never had a chance. Not legally. Not morally. Not after what they pulled. Afterwards, I went straight to the house. Walked the perimeter. Touched the new locks, the clean-cut porch railing, the fresh glass in the front window. There were still deep scuffs in the floor where the crowbar had landed. I thought about fixing them. Then decided not to. Let them stay. Let the damage speak. It was over. But the unraveling hadn't stopped. The last bits of gossip came slowly. Jason was still keeping tabs, and people still whispered when they thought no one was listening. That they'd been kicked out of the motel after my dad threw a TV remote at a desk clerk. That they spent a week couch hopping between two guys who ran a pool cleaning business and sold vape cartridges out of the back of a van. That my mom tried to guilt a food pantry into giving her extra bags by telling them her son had cut her off after years of abuse. She didn't say who was abusing who. They finally made it to the edge of the next town. Some low-income apartments near a highway overpass, the kind that always had broken blinds and cigarette butts in the flower beds. They couldn't qualify for a lease on their own, so they moved in with an old drinking buddy of my dad's who collected disability and ran an illegal poker game out of his kitchen. Jason drove by the place and said it looked like a halfway house that no one was halfway through. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything. But I kept every photo. Every voicemail. Every text. I made a folder, printed out letters, receipts, bank statements, copies of her messages to people behind my back. It sat in a drawer in my office labeled In case they ever try again. They didn't. Relatives stopped mentioning them. My Aunt Helen sent a final message a few weeks later, just a vague, 2-sentence apology, and something about God healing wounds. I never responded. Neither did Jason. No one did. And then it was as if they disappeared. My dad, once the loudest guy at every barbecue, was now just a rumor that people lowered their voices to mention. My mom, who used to insist we take 10 pictures before dessert so she could post them with the hashtag blessed, didn't even have an active Facebook account anymore. They were deleted not by me, but by their own choices. Every bridge they set on fire? Burned down to the riverbed. There wasn't even smoke left. I finished the renovations in silence. Painted the walls a different color. Replaced the front door. Donated the old furniture. There was a moment quiet, brief, when I thought about inviting people over, maybe hosting something. But I let it pass. This wasn't a place for gatherings. Not yet. Maybe never. This house was their trophy. Their leverage. Their reminder of where I came from and how much I supposedly owed them. Now it was mine. Not as a gift. As a victory. I wasn't proud of how far things had gone, but I wasn't sorry either. They chose the game. I just played it better. And somewhere out there, my parents sat in someone else's apartment, probably still spinning a new version of the story. One where they were the victims. Where their son betrayed them. Where they never got what they deserved. But they did. They absolutely did. Update 1. For months past. The house was quiet now in a way I'd never experienced before. No banging, no screaming, no guilt woven into every wall. Just silence and space. I bought a rail bed. Hung curtains. Let sunlight in. I even planted 2 trees in the backyard, something about putting down roots, I guess. I didn't hear from them for a while. No sightings. No drama. No news from extended family. They'd become ghosts. And I was fine with that. Then one night I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, half expecting a scammer or a wrong number. But curiosity got the better of me. I played it. It was my father's voice. It sounded different. Not angry. Not proud. Just flat. He said he was calling from a borrowed phone. That they'd been kicked out again. That his friend had kicked them out after my mom accused the guy's girlfriend of stealing her purse. They'd lived in a car for 2 weeks. Sleeping in parking lots. Eating fast food once a day, splitting it. He asked if I could meet him. He didn't say sorry. Didn't mention the house or the past or what they did. Just, I thought I'd try one last time. I didn't call him back. 2 days later I ran into Jason at the grocery store. He told me they tried to show up at the local church again, this time pretending they were new to the area and had fallen on hard times. One of the volunteers recognized them and told the pastor. They were asked to leave. Then came the letter. Not handwritten. Typed. This time it was from my mom. Neatly worded. Cold. Like a legal document disguised as a personal plea. She was asking for access to the joint checking account I had already closed. Said it was unfair that I had robbed them of their stability. Said they were prepared to explore legal options if I didn't comply. Legal options. I didn't even get angry. I just scanned it, filed it in the same drawer as everything else, and moved on. Later that week, Jason sent me a screenshot from a city Facebook group. Someone had posted a blurry photo of my dad in front of a gas station again, this time holding a sign. Not even begging. It just said, "Help wanted. Family trouble." No name. No context. Just the remnants of pride trying to spin sympathy. A few comments were sympathetic. Most weren't. I read them once and closed the application. I hadn't won anything. But I'd survived. And now I lived. They weren't. And that was the update. Not a twist. No final blow. Just the slow, quiet collapse of people who thought they were too smart to fall.